I'm a communicator and marketer in a lot of ways in different projects I work on. And we get told a lot of stories that frame our thinking. And I think now data can be used to make better stories and to rationalize things and to say, wait, actually, that isn't true. And so I'm very excited about the data side of everything and making good decisions and democratizing decision-making through the fact that we have real-time information a lot of times, but yet some parts of our systems are clunky and slow to get up to speed with that. But it's something that I think that hopefully will help us into the future.
Hi, Smart Community friends, and welcome to our second episode of Mobility May. In this episode of the Smart Community Podcast, I have a fantastic conversation with Dan Hendry. Dan strives to promote sustainable initiatives and is also involved in many community-based projects. He is a social innovator, facilitator, mentor, and communicator, and focuses his energy and efforts on making Kingston in Ontario, Canada, a sustainable, livable, and smart city. Dan starts off by telling us about his background in sustainability and his current work specifically in transit-based projects. He also tells us what a smart community means to him and his passion for sustainability, innovation, and leaving the world in a better place. Dan then tells us about his awesome work teaching teens how to ride city transit and linking the school and transit systems together. And then we discuss the value of that education for people and the community. We then talk about the importance of normalising the concept of transit and different transit behaviours, before Dan explains how data helps him to educate in his projects that he works on, as well as the web of benefits that data helps to visualise. We finish our chat discussing the emerging trend of climate change and the climate crisis and the need to take action on this issue. As always, we hope you enjoy listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it.
Welcome to the smart community, smart regions, smart towns, and smart cities. It's where we live, work, and play. With smart communities, the future starts today. Big data, smart mobility, emerging trends galore. The Smart Community Podcast is what you're looking for.
Hello, Dan. How are you today?
Really good. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on the podcast and to be part of Mobility May. So let's just jump straight in, and can you tell us about your background and what you're passionate about?
For sure. So my name's Dan Hendry, calling in from Kingston, Ontario, Canada. Grew up in a small rural town. Got to travel a bit and go to school in Victoria, British Columbia, and actually over to Korea, and did my master's in Sweden in sustainability about 15 years ago. And since doing, the master's in sustainability, it kind of changed how I look at the world. And I've been involved in sustainability projects, specifically now to transit-based projects for years.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Okay, well, we'll dive into a lot of that as we go through. But let's first start with, what is a smart community to you?
To me, it's kind of a blend between, let's say, the old and new, but constantly evolving. I think adaptation is a big part of the, while it's nature, there's always change. And I think integrating technology for sure. But it's not just about technology, it's about people. It's how we relate to things. It's about resources and making things efficient now that we have technology. And my brain works like that. When I'm walking around, I'm like, why do we do it that way? And sometimes I see things getting fought about in the community or at a national level at the news. And I'm thinking, well, you know what? But there's change do we shop at Blockbuster anymore? Like a video store, like a brick and mortar, or do we go to Netflix, right? Things change. So I think it's that combination, being very human centric, but also acknowledging we live in a biosphere and we have to do things smarter because we live in a big bubble. And we know this now since the 60s and, that shot from space and the moon. So it's that combination of tech, people, policy, and kind of continually to adapt and utilize these things.
Yeah, and I think you're right. We're in this ever constantly changing world, and we have been since the world, started to exist. But I think this rapid change is happening now, and we need to get on board because it's going to happen whether we like it or not. Going to happen whether we are involved or not. And if we don't get involved, then we miss our opportunity to actually shape it and shape the future that we want. It's not set yet. So I think that's a really key point that you've made there. And it's like, it continues to change as well. So for me as well, this smart community concept, it's not like, oh, okay, great, now we've got a smart city or a smart community. It continues to grow and change as we all shift And not even just technology changes, but mindsets change, different
100%.
Cultural elements change.
Yeah.
What
demographics right now, right?
Yeah.
Like demographics are hugely changing across the world, right? So 100%.
Yeah. Now, I think I missed the beginning. Tell us what you're really passionate about in this space.
In this space, honestly, we've inherited so many things from other humans, right, before us, like on top of norms and beliefs, like we just said, or man-made systems. We've inherited our economic systems, education systems, even political systems. And many of these were built before humans had ever seen the Earth from space, right? But why I'm really passionate about this is because of that, a bit of my background in studying, once I realized, that all human life kind of exists only in the biosphere and it wasn't human made, yet we constantly, are fixated on the things that past humans have made. I kind of had a big moment. Like, I'm just like, we have to do things smarter. Maybe the Earth wasn't just made for us, right? Maybe other animals matter, other species matter. When we're seeing, decline in the biosphere and different extinction rates, I just think that we maybe not built everything the way we could have or should have. So my passion is sustainability, innovation, making things better, the best we can with the knowledge that we have, right? And not being scared of that. So, I'm really driven by not just change because, it's like, well, we should change this. I like this color. If it makes sense, then let's do it. But it's really about sustainability and kind of hopefully leaving the world in a better place than, maybe I inherited it with the knowledge that we've gained, especially over the last 20 years of rapid technological and kind of expansion,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I think moving forward into, like you were talking about things that we have at our disposal, essentially, but also, the tools and things that we have at our disposal as well, which includes technology, which includes using data to make better decisions, all those type of things. But we need to be able to change our way of thinking so then we can do things better. But just change for the sake of it too, because today we like pink instead of purple is also an interesting concept, because I think we want to be changing for the better, right? Not just
Well, and data can be, I'm a communicator and marketer in a lot of ways too, in different projects I work on, and we get told a lot of stories and that frame our thinking. And I think now data can be used to make better stories and to pull those and to rationalize things and to say, wait, actually, that isn't true, right? And so, I'm very excited about the data side of everything and making good decisions and democratizing decision-making through the fact that we have real-time information a lot of times. But yet, some parts of our systems are clunky and slow to get up to speed with that. But it's something that I think that hopefully will help us into the future.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's lots that we can do with that we may not even be able to think about yet, because we are, starting at the base. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about mobility in a second. It's like we've got this information and we've got more and more data coming at us, but it's actually about just stopping and thinking about what can we actually do with that, because there are so many opportunities, but also what should we do with that? Just because we can doesn't mean we should do it. And then going back to your point about it is about technology, but it's about the people, thinking about how we can best serve the people as well, because we know that data can be used for terrible things as well. It's like, the statistics, and you can spin it however way you want, but we want more people involved in the conversation that care about the people and that, that ethical component of it too.
Well, and different voices that maybe haven't been expressed, have been minimized or not asked, right? And I think diversity is king in the natural world, right? A diverse system is a strong system. And I think we have to use, when I think of smart communities and what we're talking about, like making sure we get a lot of voices there to make sure we have better systems made, because it's more reflective of the group that we're serving, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And anyway, we'll get into that a bit more deeply, but I'm really keen to go to you in the projects and things that you're working on. So tell us a bit more about what you've been up to.
Yeah, no, I appreciate this opportunity. And this is something that, when I was 12 years old, I never thought I would love buses this much. Like, truthfully, I saw Indiana Jones. I wanted to be an archaeologist. That's not where I went. And I was a 40-year-old man living in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. Yeah, I love buses. And I'll tell you why. It started off, I told you I had that degree in sustainability. And sometimes these broad concepts are hard to, like, how do you get them on the ground? How do you scale? How do you make change, right? And in 2012, there's a great opportunity. There's an opportunity to the City Kingston Council at the time said, we're going to let grade 9s in high school ride the bus system for free in Kingston. Now, Kingston, keep in mind, it's got about 120,000 people. We have a military base, Queen's University, which is a fantastic university here in Canada. And so, it's got my point, I guess, like every community is a bit different with different institutions and whatnot. And so I saw this opportunity, and knowing just a bit about, education and working with youth, as well as just kind of seeing everything play out, I knew that we had to teach the kids. Like, having a free pass would be great, but if their parents didn't teach them and their teachers aren't using the system, who's teaching them, right? And they're 14, they can't drive yet. So it's a great opportunity to get them on the bus together, because I'm selling them freedom, right? So since 2012, I've been teaching and training grade 9s how to ride city transit for free. So they get it for free all through the summer. And I bring out things and point out things like volunteer work they can do, or their first date, or getting to school. It's about A to B. It's not about a bus. It's about A to B, freedom, involvement, community, right? And this program in Canada has blown up. I get calls all the time from different cities trying to figure out how to put the pieces together, how to put the school system together with the transit system, because they're not the same business. You know what I mean? Like, the school system's into education, transit, everybody, like you said before, and I think this is something that maybe we'll end the talk with, but just take the time to stop and look and observe and ask questions, right? But anyway, this program then evolved. And since 2012, 13, 14, 15, the next year in Kingston allowed to ride for free. So now in the city of Kingston, grade 9s through 12s ride for free for the student, while always training grade 9s. The numbers have been staggering. It went from 28,000 rides the first year with just grade 9s and one cohort to close to over 600,000 rides in our small community by high school students every year. And for somebody that doesn't use the transit system, or a different person who commenting, like, I think, to me, it's not about the bus. It's about the kid got on the bus and went somewhere, did something, connected to something, their friends, their freedom, their autonomy. I studied this one thing. It was in England, and it was talking about like our great grandfathers, right? In the area of influence, and grandmothers, but it's just childhood and how far they could wander, how far they could go. And we're pretty limited now. I have a 13-year-old daughter. And I remember when we bought our house, it's been 5 years now. We just saved up and got one. And she asked, can I go up front? Can I go up front? You know what I mean? And so to me, it's this program that unites the community, that gets kids to work, to school, to all these different things. It's filled out theater shows. It's made field trips possible. And truthfully, I've done a TEDx on it, and I've created other resources. Any opportunity I get to share and spread this knowledge, because the amount of return on investment has just been staggering. The free part sometimes is like, well, why do they get it for free? It's the best way to train kids to use transit. They're going to be paying riders soon. And transit's one of the most economical ways to get around a community. And it solves a chicken and egg game. Usually, to have good transit, you need frequency and you need reliability, but you need people on it to put investment in to get that. So anyway, that's one of my favorite projects I've worked on. It's something I'm known for, I guess, but tying into Mobility Month, working with youth, training transit, and creating programs of how to integrate the community with youth is kind of something, again, I'm no archaeologist, but I seem to be good at this.
I really love that. And, there's still time if you want to become Indiana Jones.
Yes, exactly.
I believe that you can, at any age, you can change and shift. But no, it would be sad if you left the mobility sphere. But I just love that, because it's a relatively simple concept, right? But actually to execute it, there's lots of things involved. And like you said, it's not about the bus. It's about those opportunities that now open up that wouldn't be possible before. And you can't even really measure.
So
there's such a web, right, of things. But the kid that now they can get a job because they have a mode of transport where they might not have been before. You open up those opportunities. You open up different education opportunities and friendships, and being able to socialize, and like you said, go to the theater and start to experience these things at a younger age. So then, when they become older and maybe they move town or whatever, you've got that ingrained. It's
100%.
And, people go, the technology, the data, where's all that? And it's like, well, the technology is the stuff that was there, right? It's the bus, it's all these things. But it's also what it is about changing the way we think about things and changing the way we do things, because the status quo would say, well, no, you charge them, and then if they use it, they use it. If they don't, they don't. Whereas there was a problem that was identified. Okay, well, how do we do this, and how do we get more people using this? And again, it's starting at that young age where they don't have to, the cost barrier isn't, you want to remove that cost barrier. So then it's, okay, well, everyone does this. And also normalising it, right? All your friends are doing it.
I'm glad you said that, because 100% right. So true story, the other day, not even long ago, I'm not even making, like, this isn't just the other day story, it was a couple of years ago. This is during the pandemic. I'm at the dollar store. I have a mask on with my daughter, and the girl behind the cash, she's probably in about grade 12. She said, "Hey, I have a mask on. Hey, you're the bus guy." Right. So I met this person 4 years ago for maybe 20 minutes, because I do about 20, 30-minute loop with each group of students, right, on a moving bus. I really do the training on a moving bus, right? And I just think how much of an impact, like, it's not, I don't mean just me, but the program, and like you said, multimodal. We've now put in heads the confidence, competence, and understanding of how to use transit. It's funny how many adults, when I tell them, one lady reached out to me locally when she saw my TEDx, and she said, like, this is going to sound goofy, Dan, but can you teach me? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm pretty open. I'm like, yeah, you want to go for a coffee downtown? I don't know this woman. Like, I got on the bus with her at the bus stop. I took her downtown, showed her, because it's that time. I think we overestimate the confidence we have in different systems and how we normalize patterns and understanding of what we're used to, right? And yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because I just think it is about, they teach each other. I only give them 20, 30 minutes of training, and then they get passes and you send them off. But within that group of students, you always have those, like any product life cycle, you get the early adopters, you get the ones that parents believe in it or they want to do it, and they teach each other. And once they normalize the benefits and they see the benefits at that age, it blows up, right? Because the benefit, it's apparent, right? Like, they're using it. Those 600,000 rides were things that they did, right? And so, yeah, thank you for that. Like, I get so excited about this program because I've just seen it. Like, again, imagine being at the store and somebody says, "Hey, you helped me 4 years ago, and I remember you for 15 minutes," right? Like, I think it's pretty cool,
It is. And isn't that amazing? Like, she's working there now, but maybe she'll get to be in another town, and then she'll teach her friends how to, we'll just catch the bus. And they might go, "Oh, I've never caught the bus before,"
Yeah, exactly.
It seems like a very simple thing, but we know that transport is a huge emissions generator, right?
100%,
and so we need to shift our behavior. We need to shift it all around the world. And these simple type of things can really help us to ingrain that from the very beginning, but also, look at the data, right? You're looking at the data where you've been able to increase those trips, and you know that it works. And so how do you then, and you can also then apply this to other things. Like, okay, this was a bus, but maybe in other towns it might be cycling, or maybe it's the train, or whatever the case is. And I think I had someone on the podcast recently around cities and children, and like normalising this walk/cycle to school. So it's a similar concept where it's like normalising that. I think we underestimate how, when something's normalised, how then it just becomes, it can become ubiquitous. Whereas before that normalisation, you only get those early adopters, or the ones
the people that have
to. Yeah. Great. Thanks for bringing that up, because it is. It's interesting. I was thinking when I was in Amsterdam, for example, like, I met the head of traffic at City of Amsterdam, or the Transport Department of Amsterdam, and she rocks up on a bicycle. Which, if I said that to people Dutch, they'd be like, "Yeah, obviously." Whereas in Australia, no one rocks up on a bicycle to a cafe, right? Like, that's not a thing unless you're all meeting there together. And then she just folds up her bike and puts it there, and it's like, "Oh, this is just a normal thing." And everyone does it because it's normalized. Whereas, if you did that in Australia, you might do it, but you'd be the only one to do it. So then you'd have to be pushing against the grain the whole time to get change 100%. To happen.
And the infrastructure, right? Like, absolutely. That positive momentum, like better infrastructure, more people, better infrastructure. It's these cycles, these feedback cycles. And I mean, Kingston, truthfully, did put some good money in good routes beforehand. They had some strategy about just having, let's put some money into transit, but these types of programs have gotten the bums on the seats, right? People all talk about electrification of transit, which I'm a huge believer in, but you still need people to use it, right? And so, normalizing is a big part of what this is doing,
Yeah, and there's so many pieces to the pie, as you were just hinting at there. It's like, electrification, different modes, that type of thing. But then you have to get people's behaviour to change, because it has to be a push because they have to, like you were saying earlier, like, on people that have to use it. But then, you have to get people's behaviour to change because it's the most effective option for them, or it's, more convenient, or they see benefits in it. And, some particularly younger people are going to well, not even just younger people, but that sustainability element, selling that story as well will help. But also, if it's going to take you an hour on a bus and 15 minutes in a car, you're not going to choose that option. And also, if you've never used it before too, like, oh, it's taken an hour, but what if it takes me the wrong direction? Oh, that's going to be 2 hours. Like all those type of things as well.
Well, and that's why I think part of the training is so important, is because you give them a good, united, clean, good experience. Like I've heard people that they have, they didn't take time to educate themselves or understand how it works. They get on the wrong bus. I've gotten the wrong bus before, but I just know how it works, right? And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't want to use that. I tried it once and it's not good, right? And it isn't about that. It's about giving good experience. No, 100%. Like this is, it's something that I've been so passionate about. And that's why I really appreciate you letting me come on and share this side of the story, because I truthfully believe if we just take the time in different communities, because one of the barriers is budget cycles. Because if you have to take a bit of money out, municipalities are already trying their best. It's been stretched with COVID. And so it's always a financial decision. But if you look long-term, the best thing you can do is a program like this to grow ridership for a paying rider base, right? So, but it's taken that time,
And you're right, it's that long-term thinking, and that's what the smart community approach is all about. You might get some quick wins. You might be able to, check off some, we've seen some benefits in 12 months, but actually it's a long-term gain, because it has to be, because some of these things, one, you need to, change that behavior or whatever the case is, or you need to be able to look at the trends over time and shift and change, because we know there's not a recipe that everyone needs to follow and then you get the same cake at the end. I think that's what we need is this journey, but also this long-term thinking. Because, if we're only thinking about the 4-year budget life cycle year or whatever it is.
Exactly. Political cycles really or budget cycles. Now, the one thing just going back to what you said, data, I just want to bring up with this program, it's the data helps me tell the story. Like they are smart cards. So like I know how many rides, not just me, but it helps us tell the story, analyze it, looking at it different ways. And that's really helped us too, because with this, I can talk to different people different ways. So if we're talking about health in this, I can say, you're more likely to get your daily physical activity. I think it's about 64% more likely if you take transit, because all the walking between things, right? From the environment, we can talk about the greenhouse gas reduction, or from the school, you can talk about getting to not be confined by the school bus or your parents dropping you off. For the parents, it's autonomy, or workforce is, but so it's also using the data, like the hard data, but the stories to craft different ways to communicate to different ears about the value of this, because there is so many spin-offs and value. We could take this podcast. I could be one of those 10-hour long things and probably talk about it. I'm just joking, of course, but there's been so many stories over the years that I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't even think of that. Like a local not-for-profit that now they can put the money they used to put in for transportation to buy the kids food to get them to homework help, right? So stuff like that, just the spin-offs have been incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we talked about earlier, there's a web of benefits basically in these offshoots, and some will be hard numbers that you can measure. But actually, to even link the hard numbers, you need the stories in the middle, right? You need to go to the not-for-profit and be like, hey, tell us what your experience is, or they need to be able to come to you, or whatever the case is, or share the story. I think that's such a key component of it too, because you want to be able to visualize it. But if you're only visualizing numbers and not linking them together, then they're not going to make sense. And people are going, oh, God, I don't know what that means. But I mean, there's a couple of things there, like the actual visualization of it as well, which seems like, oh, well, yeah, okay, you can get a pretty picture at the end, but that's your communication tool. Yeah. But then you want to be able to bring people in as well to help you communicate it too, because then it's not coming just out of your mouth, it's coming out of the shopkeeper's mouth, the not-for-profit, the school. And then you've got this the student, right? The parent. And then you can weave this beautiful web of benefits and stories. And then that's what people are talking about, right? And then also you can, if maybe there's you go, oh, when we did this spiked, or when we did this, it actually went down. I wonder why that is. Maybe I'm just making stuff up now, but maybe, we put this older bus on that wasn't as comfortable, and it was a big diesel bus or something. And actually people didn't like that. We didn't realize it would make such a difference. Okay, maybe we do. Maybe that is a case for changing the policy to whatever, renew the buses or whatever the case is, or renew the seats. But I think that's really important. If you've got people looking at it all the time and aware of it and focused on it, then you can make better decisions. And sometimes they're very small things, like they aren't costing lots and lots of money. But if you've got somebody thinking about it and that they can change it and empowered to actually, shift things around, then that really, and they might not be the person that actually shifts it, but being able to be empowered to share the ideas of what we could do differently is so key.
Well, and that's why I like telling the story, because it isn't easy. I'm not going to say it's easy, But once you get going, it can be like, because the value just starts to amplify and the feedback cycles get tighter and you build the relationships. But you're right, like innovation to me, this has even changed how I look at innovation. A lot of times I think I see online and other things, it's all about tech and data, which is great and important, 100%. But I'm looking at more like the social innovation and structures of why do we do things? Because sometimes it's about the different departments of the government that aren't talking to each other because during their day-to-day, they're not. And I'm not blaming that. But that's part of that innovation is to get good ideas to be able to bump into each other and take the time to figure it out.
And that's so key too. Like, as you said earlier, like the schools focus on education, the buses focus on transport, and because they have to be, right? Because if they were focused on other things, then their main job wouldn't get done. But then once you start bumping into each other, then this is where the magic happens. And doesn't even have to be physical. We know in the pandemic you can do this stuff virtually. Obviously, it needs to be able to share ideas and all those type of things as well. But it's like, okay, you're really focused on this, but that's when you kind of need those translators in the middle that can kind of think, this is happening here, this is happening here. I wonder what could happen in the middle. But we need people open to be able to actually have those collaborations and just be able to stop and breathe for a second. And I think, like you were saying earlier, we're not saying, the government should be doing this or that. This is just the way it is at the moment. But how can we then change our thinking a little bit? But I was thinking about, and had a lot of conversations with people from the government and people that work with the government on the podcast. Like, there's so much complexity in the government that you actually do need somebody outside of business as usual to help generate these ideas. And that's where that shift of thinking happens. So even like the program itself has these beautiful outcomes. But the process of the program also has outcomes, right? Like, as in the process itself then helps to change mindsets. It helps to start the conversation. So there's so many things in a program like that it's not just the final, the outcome that is important. It's the process along the way, which gets people to think differently, which I also really love.
But I don't think that if this happened, like this wasn't planned. This happened organically. Like, we did it the first year, like, okay, and we just built the relationships. Like, okay, how can we make it better? What can we do to improve it? Right? Like, literally, this was like an innovation cycle, but we just had to do it that way. It was like, do you want grade 10s next year? Yeah, I think so. Do we have to train them all? Well, the grade 9s. Like, we figured it all out. We got a mobile printer. So we adapted as we did. But you're 100% right. Those conversations sometimes come in from the external, come in through a different rationale, right? But it's a lot of time, truthfully, what I found is like, it's got to be, a lot of times they have to be rooted with empathy and respect and trust, right? Like, because you got to build trust. A lot of people are trying their best. I don't mean everybody is in the world, maybe, but there's a lot of good people trying their best. And it's hard to just you're not doing good enough. It's constant. Keep in mind, like, I think about the phones we have, and we call them phones, which is crazy. Because when I was a kid, a phone was like attached to the wall and you could only talk to people. Now these are like whatever you want, like video cameras, movie theaters. I just mean that there's been so much change in our work life, our balance, the economy, everything. I try to really approach, not with a push, but with like a push, but like more of a pull and like ask for help. And how can we figure things out? Let's look at it a different way. But also what I think is really important, especially working in different government systems, is to learn how they work. What I realized with the pandemic, a lot of people, I don't think that we pay attention to the different levels of government or who has the authority or what committee, how does it work? Because that's the one thing I've spent a lot of time also knowing. How's the school system work? How's the university system work? How does the city work? The transit system, that type of provincial government in our case, right? And once you learn some of those, that can help you too with finding funding, resources, connection, that type of stuff, right? So sometimes it is that pause and it's about paying attention to how things work now and then try to pull things together to, make it make sense to make that difference going forward,
Yeah, that's really, really an important one because I think and I guess it's a little bit different, but I'm just thinking of when maybe a new consultant or new technology provider wants to work with the government and they get frustrated because they can't get in there or they don't know this, that, the other. You need to take the time to understand how it works. And we know some things could shift and change, but a lot of that, you don't change it by not understanding. You need to understand it first before you can change it, right? Yeah. It's a really key one that I think we often don't talk about enough.
No, and one thing I always say with that is like, well, I talked to the city and the city. I said, who's the city? There's like 1,500 employees. Like, did you just get a bad day of a customer service representative that didn't know what was happening? You know what I mean? I don't just mean that. I just mean we're all people waking up in a pandemic with a lot going on. And that can't, so just being strategic and kind of mindful of how you're approaching who you're talking to and look for different avenues, right? And paying attention to how these things are set up to work the current way they are working.
Mm. Well, it's a great segue to, we're talking about now. Let's zoom to the future. And can you tell us about some of the emerging trends that people aren't talking about enough?
Well, I mean, I don't want to be negative, but I think that the climate crisis is something that should be in every conversation. We have 7.8 billion people. We're mammals. We require food, water, clean. And I challenge clean food, water, not polluted, right? And the science of the biosphere, it says it wasn't made just for us, I don't think, and so sometimes I know we project the future, if I'm about 40, I remember watching Michael J. Fox and Back to the Future, and I should have had like shoes that self did up and flying on a hoverboard, according to that. That's not how the world worked that time. And sometimes we project everything as good and up, but we do need a livable biosphere. And so I would say that I think we have to expedite our thinking about smart communities. I think we have to change technology off fossil fuels. This is just the science behind it. And so I think that's something that it's always there. It's just a big, ugly elephant that it's easier not to talk about, right? But in parallel to the good things that are happening, we do need resources from the earth. We need this connection. We need electricity, if that's the case, if you want, computers or crypto or anything, right? And that all happens within where we live. So we have to respect the physical constraints and the physics that in the biosphere that we're given, let things regenerate and look at doing things a bit differently while integrating and making better communities with the knowledge that we have. Because I just worry about kind of the other side of the funnel, let's say, narrowing in and maybe creating less opportunity for us than we think because we need resources. Some countries are really good at making certain things. Well, we need those things to change stuff too, whether it be microchips or solar panels, right? So again, I'm a positive person and I work and try my best in sustainability for what I can physically do as one single human. However, that's the one that I wouldn't say is hidden, but we don't always talk about.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's something, again, having that awareness and that focus and actually being able to shift and change and do, make action on this. And as one person, we can make certain decisions, but it's about then influencing the government agencies, the big business that are actually, if they make one small shift, or maybe it's a number of small shifts and some big shifts, we can actually then start to progress the way that we need to and not the opposite. So yeah, I think it's a really important one. And it brings to light that smart communities is not just this thing on the side that we're running with and the future's going to be amazing over here. It needs to be used to tackle these big wicked problems that we have, climate change, all these things that poverty, homelessness, all these type of things.
Well, there's symptoms. Yeah. There's symptoms to these are symptoms to a non-smart community, right? We didn't set things up right. These are symptoms of, oh, wait, we can't keep on doing that. Oh, like we don't have any more trees, but we need them. Well, yeah, we cut them all down. You know what I mean? Like these are symptoms to, I would say, unsmart communities that we've inherited a lot of these norms and systems, right? I am actively trying to do my best to bring in the knowledge that we've been given over the last 50, 80 years and do our best to bring a bit more of a balance back into our community, I'd say, to make them more equitable, diverse, and inclusive.
It's been so great to have you on the podcast. Thanks for joining me again. And I hope you have a really good, if you're taking some time off over the next few days, I hope you have a nice break. I'm hoping to have a little one. But yeah, it's been so great to chat with you. And I think we can have many more conversations. We'll have to catch up again in maybe in 3D and it's in the real world at some point. But yeah, it's been so great to chat. Yeah, it would be crazy, wouldn't it? But I just have one last question, which is how can people connect with you?
Well, on LinkedIn, so it's Dan Hendry. On Twitter, Sustainable Dan. If you look at TEDx or TED.com, you can find my TED Talk or just using Dan Hendry. It's called Throwing Our Car Culture Under the Bus. But please just reach out. And if you are connecting on LinkedIn or other things, just mention the podcast, please, because I get a lot of random requests that I don't know people or know who they are. And so if you've listened, you're interested, put a little note there, connect on LinkedIn if that's the case, or reach out through this podcast. I'm sure you guys can connect me as well.
Yeah, we sure can. We'll put all of the links in the show notes so people can click away and find you. Thanks again for joining me on the podcast. I really look forward to our next conversation. It's been fantastic. So thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Cool. Bye.
Are you looking for an engaging speaker, MC, or facilitator for your next big event? Then we've got you covered. Zoe is a go-to speaker, MC, and conversation facilitator with a difference. She's a master at simplifying the complex and making connections you might never see. Book Zoe for your next event. Email hello@mysmart.community or head over to her speaker page, www.mysmart.community/speaking.
Thanks so much for listening to the Smart Community Podcast. Show notes for this episode and all other episodes are available on our website, mysmart.community/podcast. If you have any questions for us or any of our guests, you can email hello@mysmart.community. You can also find us on the socials. We are on LinkedIn and Twitter @SmartComHQ. That's com with 2 M's. If you are enjoying the podcast, please hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And we would love for you to leave us a rating and review at wherever you listen. This really helps us reach more ears and eyes, so thank you for your support. As always, we hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it.
The Smart Community Podcast is what you're looking for.